Alright, hey, good evening everyone. Welcome to a new week and we'll get started for today's session over here. So as usual, what we're gonna do is to run through the market for the week, highlight some of the opportunities available. Then we'll do a very quick Q&A to see if you guys have any questions, and after that we'll wrap up and kind of update you on some of the new updates that we have, and of course some of the upcoming events. Okay, so before we jump in, quick disclaimer over here. Okay, everything that we're sharing in today's session is of course based on solely for educational purposes, and just be aware that trading and investing involve risks. Okay, and any opportunities that we can't cover in today's session doesn't directly constitute to any form of investment advice. Okay, good. So with that, let's take a look at what we have in terms of the economic data for the week. Okay, Monday we are relatively quiet, nothing much that's happening today. Going into tomorrow, we do have a very important data coming in both from the UK as well as the US. So UK side over here, we have the Clement count change, which is equivalent to the US NFP itself. It's the labor market data. So if you are looking at some opportunities to do news trade, right, that's definitely one of it for GBP related pairs. Then in the evening tomorrow, we do have the US core CPI as well as the CPI data year on year. Okay, so the CPI year on year data is going to be very, very crucial. Right now, you can see that the expectation is for it to drop towards 3.3, and that's going to be significant, right? So if the actual data coming out tomorrow for the CPI year on year is more than 3.3, we can expect the dollar to strengthen a little bit. But if the data comes in below 3.3, there's a very high chance we'll see the dollar sell off, especially from what we have last week, where the Fed is hinting that they may not hike rates again, and we are likely going to see the peak of interest rate. So if CPI data tomorrow is able to kind of like give us the evidence that the Fed may not need to hike rates anymore, that's where we're going to see the sell-off in the dollar, right? There's a very high chance on that. And of course, if you're into news trade, then this particular event is something you can keep a close watch. Now, Wednesday, we have the pound CPI as well, right? Which is again very, very important. You can see that the market is expecting a huge drop in the UK CPI. From a previous data of 6.7, they are expecting 4.7. So this is tricky, right? Because the market is quote unquote pricing in a significant drop in CPI. If the actual data that's going to release on Wednesday is like not even close to 4.7, we're going to see a massive surprise element in the pound, and that would likely cause the UK GBP to actually potentially rally hard, right? If we can't, actual data comes out is actually way higher than 4.7. And because the difference between the previous and the expected is so huge, this opens up the possibility of a higher chance of a deviation when the actual data actually released, right? So this is something very, very interesting to keep watch if you are looking at a pound related event. Okay, Wednesday is something you want to definitely pay close attention to. Evening, on Wednesday, we do have some US data coming in, but I don't think those are going to be very, very significant. Now, one of it that you probably want to pay a little bit more attention is the core retail sales over here. You can see the actual previous month was 0.6%. This time around, they're expecting a negative number. Okay, so again, that's a huge difference from the previous actual to what they are expecting this time around. So again, that opens up a wide room of opportunity for a deviation surprise element when it's actually released, right? So this is something you can keep an eye on to as well on Wednesday. And going into Thursday, we have the Aussie, right? Aussie labor market data, or employment change, unemployment rate. Definitely, you can keep an eye on that. And then last but not least, to end of the week, we have the UK retail sales on Friday, right? But I don't think that's going to be like super important. Okay, so for this week, the primary focus is very much on Tuesday and Wednesday, between the UK pound as well as the US data, right? So the pound and the US dollar is definitely going to be the focus for this week. Okay, good. So with that said, let's jump into the charts over here to quickly walk you through some of the analysis that I have and what are the opportunities available. Now, first up here, we have the dollar index. Okay, so dollar index actually had a little push to the upside the last 1.5 weeks. So right now, going into this week here, if you can continue to get a little bit of a pullback correctively back towards this area around 105.40 to 105.30, that will be a decent buy opportunity to the upside for a short-term move. Okay, now whether the dollar index is going to go and retest the previous high, or will this just be a simple pullback, back to it somewhere maybe about 106.50. I think we'll need to then monitor, what's the reaction as the price decides to continue to go higher. But for now, what we're seeing here is if we can get a corrective pullback towards the 58.618 zone, that will give us a short-term buy opportunity for the dollar itself. Right? So what you can do over here is to actually kind of put this together with the upcoming news for tomorrow in terms of US CPI, as well as on Wednesday we have the US retail sales as well. Okay, so that two event is likely going to give us some movement in the market, and you can combine it with the technical aspect, right, from the dollar chart itself. Now with that, we have the euro. So euro dollar over here, right now it's basically moving, but I don't think that's a significant move. For me, if we can get a little bit of a pushback towards 618, price point around 1.0720, that will be a little bit decent. I would say a little bit more decent to sell around that price point as compared to where we are right now. Okay, but we're open to the idea that this may develop into more of a running flat structure, 1, 2, 3, and then this need not retrace back, and we can actually see this continue to drop. Overall, for me, euro dollar, I'm actually bearish for now. Okay, and basically we're looking at the possibility of it coming back down to retest the bottom of the channel, or even potentially retest the bottom of the previous low. Okay, the only thing I'm really keeping track on is how am I going to get involved in the sell. Am I going to be getting involved in the sell here if this actually pulls back, or is this likely just going to be a running flat as I mentioned, and then we'll just wait for another setup, okay, to take the sell trade to the downside. So this would probably require a bit more patience, knowing that tomorrow we have a pretty significant data from the US. There's a good chance we'll wait for the news to release first before we actually jump in to decide whether to commit to a sell trade or not, right? So you definitely need to factor in not just from a technical perspective, but at the same time also combining it with, is there any particular news, is there any catalyst that's coming out that can affect price movement? Right, so that's something to note, right, for euro dollar. Now in GBP USD, overall structure is kind of similar to the euro, but this one here probably would give us a clearer potential sell structure going forward, right? If we can continue to get a little bit of a corrective structure over here. So we have this impulse push. If we can get a 3-wave correction, right, back towards that 58.618, around 1.23 to 1.2335 area, that would be a very, very decent sell trade opportunity to target the previous low. Okay, around 1.2040, right? So GBP USD, definitely something to keep watch for the week. Okay, if we can get a pullback correctively, that would be very, very nice. Aussie here, pretty similar as well. We can't get an impulsive drop. So same thing as the pound dollar. If you can get a corrective three-wave pullback to retest the area around 50.618, that's definitely an opportunity to look for a sell trade. Okay. Then we have the dollar Canadian. Okay, dollar Canadian, my primary forecast right now is a simple three-wave pullback. Okay, we can't get a push down, but this push up initially was pretty impulsive, and right now we kind of see a little bit of a crawl structure, a lack of momentum, right? So what I'm expecting is at least a simple three-wave move, 1, 2, 3, to complete that before the bigger move up. Okay, so my primary forecast right now for dollar Canadian is to look for sell opportunity. Okay, now we do have this potentially building into crawl. If you want to align it with a news event as a potential catalyst, right, that we have tomorrow as well as Wednesday, that will be pretty good. So what you can do is you can consider like breakout trade. Okay, use the breakout technique to get involved in the trade. For example, you can actually go down to a lower time frame, identify a minor low, right? In this case here we have this, and basically wait for the breakout to the downside, right? If the market, when the news is released, and if the market is gonna break below this significant low around 1.3790, and of course we want it to break down impulsively, then that's what we're gonna get, a sell trade to the downside, right? With a target at 1.3580, 1.3590, so right. So some of this major is definitely building up some potential opportunity for the week, lining up, of course, very nicely. We have the dollar news, we have the pound news. On Wednesday, we have the Aussie news as well, right? So you can actually keep focus. I would say, mostly on the majors for the week ahead. Okay, dollar yen, we're just gonna continue to be neutral and sit this out, right? I don't think there's any decent trade opportunity for the near term. Just be very patient, wait for market to develop something clearer before we can commit to this. Okay, XAU gold here, we're expecting a little bit more downside. Okay, so for me, I think with the recent development, the pullback may not have completed. Okay, while we remain overall bullish, right, for the longer term, I'm still interested in the buy trade. So my take here is, as the market is continuing pulling back, probably not a good idea to be selling into it as well. But just be a little bit more patient and wait for the market to come back towards the 50% fit. If we do, I think that's the area that we're going to look for a buy trade opportunity, right? So that price point is somewhere around 1910.5. Okay, so we're just going to wait for the pullback, and once price enter into that territory, we'll look for a buy trade setup. Okay, so that's my take on gold. Crude oil here, we're kind of still testing the key area. So last week we entered that. Okay, and I kind of say if you have any sell, would suggest you to take profit, because what I'm seeing is that the market may have put in a WXY. It has completed that potentially here as well. We're kind of expecting a decent bounce, right? But we are not getting the impulsive reaction that we want as of now. This seems a little bit slow, so I'm just going to give it a bit more time. Ideally, if this is going to push up fast, right, then any corrective move back down as a retracement will be a buy trade opportunity. However, if what we get is just a continuation of a corrective structure like this, then obviously this is telling us there's a possibility of this coming back down first. Okay, so for me, crude oil, right now we don't have a clear picture development. I'm a little bit more inclined to look for buy trade, but I'll still wait for the confirmation from price before committing to the buy itself. Okay, S&P equities itself, last week we're generally ranging a bit here. For me, I'm bullish. Obviously, there's no reason to be selling the equities based on the price action right now. but I would like to wait for a pullback first, right, before committing to any buy trade. So at the moment, I don't think that there's anything that's going to be tradable or actionable within the week itself, and likely the setup would come to us maybe next week or after that, right? So S&P equities probably just need to be a little bit patient, okay, and just wait for the setup to come to us. Other than that, we do have Euro Pound here. Kind of expecting that pullback, right? But right now it seems like the pullback is not that corrective in nature. This is pretty sharp, but of course it can still eventually turn into a corrective structure over here, depending on how price is going to develop, right? So there's a possibility of this still developing into a corrective structure. Okay, so we need to see, right? At the end of the day, I would always want to wait for an obvious three-wave structure as a correction before committing to any trade, right? If you can't just get an impulsive drop like that, even if it comes towards a 50 zone, that's not a trade to me. Okay, I want it to come down in three-wave, right? So that's something very, very crucial. Yeah, so that's my take on Euro Pound, right? If you can get a corrective move, then short-term wise, we may have one more push to the upside. However, if we don't get it, right, you also need to be open to the possibility that it may not be going up any further, right? And we need to be very adaptive and prepare for our plan B. Okay, plan B over here is the possibility where it has formed a double top. This is pretty impulsive. So if we get a corrective structure over here, okay, then that may start to indicate that instead of going up, this may actually start to be bearish. So again, the beauty about Elliott Wave is always giving us the flexibility in our preparation, in our forecasting, so that we can always prepare, 2 scenarios, 3 scenarios way ahead of the market. So what we're doing is essentially do our planning, do our forecast, and then wait for the market to tell us, oh, which one is it developing, and then we'll just follow the plan accordingly. Alright, so that's on the Euro Pound side of things. And then we have Aussie Yen. Aussie Yen is currently testing that 50 zone. But as I mentioned, right, I don't like to just execute a trade because of this push up. It's a little bit too impulsive. If this comes back a little bit more and then this goes back up here, okay, that will be a better entry, right, because of a three-wave structure. Now bear in mind that we can also see it as a running flat. Okay, so we have this push down, 1, 2, 3, and then this can still drop. Okay. Let me just very, very quickly take a look at the RSI. We do have a little bit of what we call a hidden divergence. So that may be a possibility of a running flat over here. Okay, so you can see, right, RSI actually went up, price actually made a lower high. That's what we call as a hidden divergence, right? A hidden divergence often indicates that it's a trend continuation and there's a good possibility the price will continue to drop. But for me, hidden divergence as well as a running flat is not a sell trade setup, right? I don't trade this setup. So for me, if that's the case, I'll probably just let the trade run. I'll not, kind of force the trade, chase it. So of course you need to be very clear in terms of like what is the setup that you want to see, what is the conditions and the criteria before you pull the trigger. Alright, so that's my take on Aussie Yen. GBP here, I think this week nothing much. We'll probably just wait for the pullback. By the time it's likely going to be a trade setup next week itself. Okay. Last one here to cover is Bitcoin. Okay. Bitcoin recently developed into a crawl structure, so there's a good chance that we're likely going to see a deeper pullback. So short term here, we may be looking at price retracing towards like 32,500 level. If you kind of counter trend, shorter term trader, you can consider look for the sell. But my take is if you're looking at Bitcoin, I don't do short term trading on it. I'll be more interested in the bigger picture perspective. Okay, so for me, I'll be waiting for the pullback to complete. I'll look for the buy instead, right? But if you're kind of like just trading it for short term, then the downside may be something that interests you as well. Okay, so that's on BTC. So for me, I think the focus this week is very much on the major pair for now. Okay, couple it with the UK news, the US news. That's definitely where the focus and the opportunities are going to lie for this week. Okay. Good. Someone asked about gold. For me, this is the view on gold. There's a good chance it's going to continue to pull back a little bit deeper. Okay, so I'll just wait for the pullback and keep a lookout around the 1910 level and see if I can get a buy set up for the upside. Okay, good. Okay, very quickly to update you guys on some of the upcoming events. Okay, first one here is a London live trading session that we're going to be having tomorrow. Okay, so if you head over to everythingtrading.com, click, okay, if you don't have an account, you definitely can just go and register it. Okay, once you register it and if you log in, okay, let me just very quickly log into my account to show you. Okay, it's loading a little bit. Okay, once you've done that, okay, you can see over here upcoming live trading session. Okay, tomorrow afternoon I'll be running one session in Chinese, and then in the evening in the New York session we have another trader, Mr. Daniel Owing, to run the English session. Okay, so if you're interested to join, just go over to everythingtrading.com, register for account. Once you log in, you'll be able to then register for the various live trading session. Okay, the live trading session is going to be done directly over here. You can see on the left, right? If it's during Daniel's session, you just click on the channel. If it's during my session, you can just click into that. Then you'll be able to watch live session on that day, on that particular time itself. Okay, so that's on that. Good. I see some question over here. The view on the yen pairs, right? Euro yen and the Canadian yen. Okay, I think overall the yen pairs, you probably need to be very patient on things, right? I don't like buying into the euro yen at where we are, but it's a little bit too early to be looking at the sell, right? So I mean, I would want to wait for price, okay, to at least give me an impulsive drop, followed by a correction, before I'm going to start looking for a sell trade. And for that to develop, you need to give it time, right? So I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, right? So for me, I think nothing really much that's very exciting over there. Okay, cat yen, probably something there. You can see that's what we kind of expected some time back, right? So we're kind of getting that already, right? We have this little crawl here. Yeah, so if you're interested in cat yen, right, what you can look out for is for this to come down a little bit more, forms a hourly correction, then you look at trading the correction there. Okay, alternatively, if this forms a hourly crawl, okay, then that's where you can look for that sell trade either. Okay, so yeah, cat yen, I think if you're looking into it, I think there's something potentially this week. Okay, just look for the setup to get involved in the sell trade. Okay, yeah, dollar franc, quite clear as well. I think dollar franc will probably see one more move to the downside. This is pretty corrective in nature, right? So we expect a simple push down, okay, to potentially complete this structure here as well, right? So yeah, dollar franc will be expecting a short-term sell trade. Okay. Somewhere there, and yeah, it will align quite nicely here as well. Okay, so dollar franc definitely downside. Okay, last one over here, silver. Okay, silver, initially we're looking at a reaction coming down. We don't get a crawl, but pretty impulsive, right? And right now it's testing the bottom of the area around 123. So I would say you want to be a little bit patient and see if you can go to the hourly and get a crawl development. Okay, if you can get an hourly crawl here, it's still a buy trade setup. But if you don't get it, then there's no trade, right? It entered the territory, but there's no setup. Okay, at the moment there's no setup. So give it a bit time, see if you can get an hourly crawl. If not, then you just be a bit more patient and see if this would probably, yeah, we're basically in that territory right now, right? There are some fake alignments, but the only thing you need to wait for is a setup. Okay, so right when you don't have it, just be patient on that. Okay, so yeah, generally that's what I have for today. Okay, so it's definitely going to be an eventful week, right? Because we have a lot of important data coming from kind of like the UK as well as the US side of things, and of course some of this opportunities that we share earlier today. Okay, you want to keep an eye on them as well, right? Because when there's a news, it creates some kind of potential catalyst to move prices, and that's where the opportunity is going to come in. Okay, so that's all from me for today over here. All the best to your trading. Okay, and of course, for those of you who are joining us for tomorrow afternoon London market, okay, make sure you register for an account at everythingtrading.com so that you get your account ready to just join us in the live session, right? It's free, okay, so just feel free to register, and if the time permits, just join us then. Okay, so that's all from me. All the best for the week, and I'll see you guys again tomorrow. Okay, so see you. Bye bye.